Welcome to Buzzed and Baffled, the podcast where the wine is flowing and the stories are strange.
Each week, we uncork a bottle, take a sip, and dive into some of the most jaw-dropping, unbelievable true tales you've never heard before.
From historical mysteries to bizarre real-life events, we'll have you wondering, is this for real?
So, grab your glass, sit back, and join us as we get buzzed and you get baffled.
Hey listeners, just a quick note before we dive in. Buzzed and Baffled is a podcast where we enjoy a glass of wine, share wild stories, and sometimes get a little, well, buzzed.
While we strive to share true and accurate tales, we're here for the entertainment as much as the facts. So take everything we say with a grain of salt and a splash of wine. Any opinions shared here are our own and do not reflect those of any other party.
Always drink responsibly and remember, the truth can be stranger than fiction. Okay, so we are back with episode 6.
We're on episode 6, guys.
Episode 6 already, and we're actually recording this back-to-back with episode 5 because I'm going to be out of town for my niece's graduation. Shout out Sana.
Yep, Memorial Day weekend, and everyone gets a break.
I know our rabid fans will be very sad if we don't have an episode to release because last week when we were off, there was some complaints. So.
Well, and I know if anything, people say we can't get enough Nicole. We need more. Shout out Daryl.
So, our wine tonight, and remember we're recording these back to back. So we've already had episode 5's wine, and now we're having a bottle for episode 6.
This is a good one.
It is. So this is from Wente Vineyards, a family-owned vineyard in Central Coast, California. So that's like the middle of California on the coast.
So is it Sonoma, or is it different than Sonoma?
Nope, we're different than Sonoma. We're like in San Luis Obispo, like Monterey, like right in the middle of where California is.
So like around San Diego area?
I don't know California geography that good.
Fail.
But
that is on our bucket list to go to wine country there.
Yeah, this is super good. So this is Southern Hills Cabernet Sauvignon, which is my favorite varietal of wine. This is a 2021 vintage, and this is described as, apparently this vineyard's been open since 1883. It's 5 generations of the family have made this wine. This has black cherry and plum flavors, which is like 2 of my favorites.
It's juicy.
I like a good juicy wine. Soft tannins and undertones of coffee and spice. So those kind of those add a little bit of bitterness.
Well, and those are very subtle. They're not very forward in
this
the
is very
bouquet
good.
Of the wine.
And this was actually a gift to me from our good friend James for my birthday last week. So
shout out James.
Big shout out James. This is super good. This is definitely one that I would drink again, and it's very fitting because the 2 stories I'm about to tell you both take place in California.
Okay.
So we're linking real life to stories. So
what is the title of the first story?
So I don't come up with witty titles like you do.
I mean, we can all be geniuses.
No, we can't. So the first one I'm just going to call The Tragic Life of Stephen Stayner.
Okay.
And for both of these stories, this will be a 1 episode, but I'm going to tell 2 stories in it. I just want to, like, a trigger warning. There's going to be talking about sexual assault and murder. This is going to be graphic. Like, I'm not going to be describing a lot of these things, but
I probably should have trigger warning episode 4 and 5
but
as you said that. Okay. Tuck that behind my ear for later.
Yep. So, just that's one of the topics that's going to come up in this, but I'm not going to like give specifics, graphic details.
Not graphic details about the crime.
Yep. So, Merced, California, 1965, and this is like if you imagine California on a map, in the middle of California, like north to south, east to west, like pretty much smack in the middle.
So like
California.
it's landlocked. It's not on the ocean.
Right. So like it's more inland. This is not coastal like the wine is. And it's right next to Yosemite, basically.
I did not. Is Yosemite? Yosemite?
Keep trying.
Is that in California?
Yes.
I always thought it was in Colorado.
I think you're thinking of Yellowstone, which also is in Montana, I think. So I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah, I actually also thought it was more like in the flyover areas.
Like, I thought it was like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Where like the only reason you go there is because you're going to that place.
Yeah. So it is in California. So it might go into might bleed into other states.
Okay.
But it is in California. So Stephen Stayner, and this is Stayner.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know spelling is very important to you.
I'm so good at it.
Was born on April 18th, 1965 to Delbert and Kay Stayner. He was the third of 5 children and had a brother named Cary, Cary.
Okay.
So, like, I guess how you would spell a man's name, Cary. Kind of like Cary Ells from Princess Bride, Cary. There's not a lot of men named Cary.
As You Wish
Yes,
actor.
not a lot of men named Cary, but... and sisters named Cindy, Jody, and Corey. So besides Cindy, like, besides Cindy and Stephen, the other children have, like...
normal names.
Names that could be either male or female. This is totally not important to the story, just an observation. When Stephen was 7 years old, on December 14th, 1972, a man named Irvin Murphy approached him, claiming to be a church member seeking donations. Irvin asked Stephen if his mother would be willing to donate any items to the church. And I believe this was just outside. I don't know if it was, like, after school, but
I'm sure it's like we're having...
like a public area.
Like we're having a sale, and, like, do you have, like, old clothes?
Yeah, kind of like
books?
a church bazaar.
Yeah.
Stephen said that she would probably be okay with that. Irvin Murphy asked where he lived, and if...
Don't like that.
and if Stephen would take him to the house to pick up the donations. Stephen said yes.
But he doesn't even know, like, what the donations are yet, because he hasn't asked his mother, so why are you going to the house?
Well, why do you think?
I know why, but gross.
When this happens, when Stephen agrees that he'll take this guy to his house to pick up whatever his mother might be willing to donate, a white Buick driven by a man named Kenneth Parnell pulls up.
Also, they're tag teaming.
And the two, the kid and the adult get in with this other adult, Kevin Parnell.
He didn't even need a puppy to get in. He's just like, yeah.
He's just like, sure, I'll get in your van.
I guess
a white Buick.
This is before stranger danger.
Yeah, this is 1972. So,
yeah.
And the kid's 7. It's, when you're 7, he's trying to do something good.
Yeah, for the church.
Yeah. So, but obviously, instead of being driven to his house to pick up whatever items he's put his mom on the hook to donate, Kenneth Parnell drives the vehicle to his nearby cabin.
Tracks.
Stephen didn't know it at the time, but this cabin is only a few hundred feet away from his grandfather's home.
Oh, no. He was so close to safety.
He was so close. So Kenneth Parnell...
But, like, I'm assuming Kenneth lives because he's there to tell the tale?
Well, we'll talk about this. So Kenneth Parnell, the guy who's driving the vehicle, not the accomplice who's luring the child, is a convicted child molester who meets Irvin Murphy, the tag team guy, while they worked together at a Yosemite resort.
So the first guy is the bait.
Yeah, the first guy is the one soliciting donations to a kid. The second guy is the mastermind, I guess, behind this. Parnell convinced Murphy that he was an aspiring minister and tasked him with helping him to abduct a young boy in order to, quote, raise him in a religious type deal, unquote, Murphy later described. So he's been hoodwinked by Kenneth Parnell.
Is he intellectually challenged?
Well, I don't have any official reports, but from everything I read, there's something awry. This is,
he's like, yeah, this seems fine.
Yeah, someone who's cognitively all there and neurotypical is not going to be like, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, let's just go get a kid.
Like, we can just, like, find one and just raise him as, like, however God sees fit.
Yeah, exactly. Kenneth Parnell, and I'm basically going to refer to him as the main offender in this story, and Irvin Murphy's kind of the sidekick.
Well, that's good because I'm terrible with names, and I'm just like, which creep are we talking about?
Yeah, so Kenneth Parnell, the main guy, the driver, was raised primarily by his mother. His father abandoned the family when he was 6.
Mother.
And the mother ran a boarding house in Bakersfield, California. I don't know where in California that is. Probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know. In March 1951, Parnell was convicted of raping a male child and impersonating a police officer.
Great.
He lured the young boy by showing him a fake badge that he purchased at a surplus store.
That is a federal crime.
So this is like clearly a pattern of behavior here. And also, like, why is he back out on the street? I get that it was 1951, but why was he not in jail forever?
Well, I mean, back in the day, like, you do a sex crime and, like, get a slap on the wrist.
They probably said it was the kid's fault.
And it's just not looked as strongly upon as it is now.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know exactly how long he was in jail for this offense, but while he was in jail, he escaped.
Of course he did.
And, of course, he was recaptured. And so, like, again, how did he get out of jail? Like, why was he released?
But also, like, this could be a really small town. Like, it could be set up like the Onto jail where, like, the fence doesn't fully encapsulate the backyard, so you could just walk out. So, like...
So while he's imprisoned for this crime... Oh, I said that already. He escaped. He was later interviewed about this crime and stated he did it because... Why do you think he did it? What do you think his excuse was why he had to rape this young boy?
The real reason or the reason he gave?
The reason he gave.
I think he's going to say God told him to.
I mean, in the same vein of what we know about some people, because his wife was pregnant and he needed an outlet.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's that.
Denied.
Parnell later denied being sexually abused himself, but a book about Stephen Stayner's life, the victim we're talking about here, someone wrote a book about this event, included information about this offender being molested by a boarder at his mother's boarding house.
I would say that would make sense because, like, I don't want to say it's worse if you do it because you weren't abused yourself, but, like, then we're looking at, like, you're, like, a sociopath, you have antisocial personality, and you're hurting people because you like it.
Right, not because...
Because this has happened to me, and I don't know what to do with these feelings because this happened as a kid.
And I don't know what the rate is. I just know that if someone is sexually abused as a child, there's a... And I don't know what the percentage is.
Well, yeah, like, I don't know the statistics, but very, very typically, if someone is a perpetrator, there's a strong likelihood they were a victim also.
So he denied being sexually abused. And I don't know what evidence the writer of the book used.
But he may not have viewed it as abuse.
Yeah.
Because it's also 1950.
Yeah, so there's that. So it's possible he was abused as a child at his mother's boarding house. And if you have...
Well, yeah, you just have randos coming in, and boarders are transient.
Yep, and...
It's not like she had a vetting system,
right, and the father had left, so there's, and I have no idea about his mother. I don't know what kind of person she was.
Well, Dad left. I need to keep a roof over my kids' head and food in my kids' bellies. So I have rooms. I take in boarders. Yep. I do what I gotta do.
Yep. And I don't know if she was complicit. I have no idea, so I'm not passing any judgment on his mother because I do not know. So a decade after this 1951 rape of this young boy, he was charged with armed robbery in Utah. So we have a career criminal here.
So we're starting to look at a personality disorder, likely.
Yeah, like,
he's very likely an antisocial personality.
So he's in jail for raping a young boy because his wife was pregnant and he needed an outlet. I mean, let's be real.
He's not viewing...
Go to a brothel.
He's not viewing the victims as people. He's viewing them as tools.
Yeah, so he's in jail for that. He escapes. He's back in jail. 10 years later, after he's out, he's convicted of armed robbery.
He hasn't learned anything from this.
And why do they keep letting him out of jail? So, we're back in 1972. They're at the cabin. The first night they were at the cabin, he molested Stephen Stayner.
Of course he did.
13 days later into the stay is when the rape started.
So, how are you labeling a difference between molestation and rape?
That's really just what the article said.
Okay.
So I'm assuming...
I'm assuming maybe it's
like
the
penetration
aggression
versus non-penetration is kind of what I'm thinking.
I'm guessing it's the molestation might be more grooming. You're allowing more things, and rape it's an aggressive act.
Yeah. So whatever this was defined as, of course,
the writer of the article defined it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
of course, the abuse starts on day 1.
Yeah.
It escalates on day 13.
But it gets worse.
Yeah.
Because the line keeps moving.
Parnell told Stephen that his parents had relinquished their custody of him to Parnell because he said they had too many kids. They can't afford them all. They gave you to me. And he started calling Stephen by a new name, Dennis Gregory Parnell.
That's very interesting because, like, he's trying to create an entire world for this child, but you can't maintain this world.
So he's abusing this child, but he's also...
He's living out a fantasy.
He's also kind of adopted him in a way that he's also, I don't want to say maintaining his humanity, but he's given him another name. And he enrolled him in school under this new name.
Did the kid go to school?
Yes.
Okay, so this is like more than just like a weekend.
Oh, yeah.
But like he's living a fantasy with this child. Okay.
So I don't know how much of this is related to his religious delusions, whether those existed or
not.
not.
Well, that's the thing. It's 1972. We don't know if he has a psychotic disorder or anything.
Exactly. So they moved around frequently because you can't stay in one place.
Because the kid's going to be like, Daddy rapes me. Like, you can't...
And also, like, the kid's 7. Like, this isn't a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old who, you can change their name and they just accept it because they don't know the difference. This kid knows who he is, but he's been told and believes that his parents did not want him.
And now I have to rely on this person.
Yeah, and this is who I am now. I don't have a choice because my parents didn't want me.
Well, but that's also Stockholm Syndrome, right? So, like, I have to identify with my captor because that's what keeps me safe.
And Kenneth Parnell is pretending to be his father this whole time. So
is the other guy still with him?
He's kind of, yeah.
He's, like, pieced out a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's kind of a change of cast as this goes on. I don't know at what point Murphy and Parnell stopped hanging out and stealing kids. Probably once they had a kid.
Well, he had a kid. Until this kid ages out, he doesn't need a new one.
So, despite being kidnapped as time goes on, Stephen is given more and more and more freedom. He's allowed to come and go as he pleases.
Because he's proven to be reliable and he's going to follow the rules.
And he doesn't have anywhere to go because he thinks his family abandoned him and gave him to this guy. He's also allowed to start drinking at a young age.
Well, if I'm going to be sexually assaulting someone repeatedly, I need them to be numb. Look at Cassie and Diddy right now.
So, Parnell, and this is not a knock on people who work labor or what we would consider
blue-collar jobs.
Menial jobs. But we know what we know about people who are serial offenders. The only work they can hold is menial type work. So, like...
jobs where questions aren't asked.
Exactly. So, he often has to travel for this work. I don't know exactly what work he did. I know he worked at the resort at one point. So, I'm guessing, like...
seasonal work.
Yeah, he's doing seasonal work.
I'm in and out.
He's doing, gardening, stuff like that. Stuff that's, where, like you said, there's really no questions asked. It's probably cash-based.
Yep. Pay you under the table.
Yeah.
No social security cards are needed.
There's no background checks, nothing like that. And he would leave Stephen home alone during these times because, at this point, Stephen basically feels like he's the son of this guy. He has no reason to leave, and he has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Later, Stephen remarked that, on reflection, he could have escaped many, many times, but he had no idea where to go or how to ask for help. Because how do you say...
my family gave me away to this guy, and I don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like he's getting... if someone came to me for therapy, and they said this to me, so many red flags are going up. I'm like, you're not leaving this office. I'm calling CPS.
Yeah.
and we're going to get you somewhere safe.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that, they stayed in probably small rural areas where he traveled seasonally.
People mind their business.
And, physical distance may have been a factor too. Even if I get out of wherever we're staying, a cabin, a rental place, where am I going to go? And what am I going to say? My dad, who's not my dad, stole me?
Yeah.
Like...
But he doesn't think he's stolen.
And he doesn't think he's stolen. And at this point, I think all the abuse and everything has become the norm because that is what he's basically grown up with. So there's an 18-month period where Stephen is being held captive, of course. A woman named Barbara Matthias lives with them.
She doesn't think anything's wrong?
Well, no, because they both raped Stephen.
Oh, delightful.
Yep. So at this point, she's replaced the first guy. This Barbara woman's replaced.
So he needs to have people to have control over. That's his thing.
She tried to lure another boy for Kenneth Parnell, but she was non-successful.
I feel like I'm in an episode of Criminal Minds right now.
Later, she claimed that she had no idea that Stephen/Dennis was a kidnapping victim.
Bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. You fucking knew.
I hope they threw the book at her. Unlike poor Bernie Tide, she deserves the book to be thrown at her.
Yeah, like, don't you think if someone said, hey, let's go get this boy, it wouldn't, like, ring a bell that maybe the boy that's you already have and you're both raping probably is not his son?
If I'm dating someone and they say anything about wanting a crotch goblin, I guarantee you that I'm piecing out because I don't want any children.
You're not, like, actively participating in the abuse and abduction of other children.
No, like, the idea of just having one in the house because, like, they're visiting, I was like, ugh, no thank you.
Yeah. So as Stephen enters puberty, Kenneth has kind of lost interest.
He's too old.
And tries to turn him into his accomplice.
That's not surprising.
To kidnap a new prepubescent boy.
You have to groom the next one. And let them know what's expected. Just like when you have an old dog and you get a puppy.
Yep. Yeah, you kind of want the old dog to be like, here's how we do things in this house.
So, like, for example, when you get a puppy, you have Lana teach the puppy what to do so that they can carry on Lana's legacy.
Lana's not allowed to pass on any of her knowledge.
Lana, for those of you who don't know, is the Blurst dog. I thought I had the Blurst dog.
No.
She's an escape artist.
Lana's the worst dog I have ever had. By far. Not even close. Not a question. Scale of 1 to 10, Lana's a 99.
She is an escape artist, and she never comes back.
Yeah, she's literally the worst. And every year, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the year that she calms down. And I swear she just gets worse. And also, she's going to live to be like 18. So
it's going to be Lana and Molly.
And also, she's a 70-pound husky mix. So, like, she's not supposed to live so long. But I know she's going to.
Like, Molly's 15. And I'm like, maybe this is the year.
I know you're on a daily basis. You like, I know when you wake up, you kind of look over at her with one eye, and you're like,
is she breathing?
Justice for Molly. Hashtag justice for Molly.
All of my friends, justice for Molly.
We're all team Molly.
I see you, Eric.
So he's trying to get Stephen, and I'm going to call him Stephen because this monster changed his name to Dennis, but his name is Stephen. Just so you're not confused, because there's a lot of names in here.
I'm keeping track of the names. Nope, I just have, like, in my mind, I just have pins.
The bad guy and the kid.
The kid, yep. And now the weird lady.
But she was only there for a year and a half. So at this point, she's kind of gone. She's out of the picture, because that's why Kenneth Parnell is like, oh, hey, boy, now you're going to help me. Yeah. And I don't know if that's how his relationship with the first bad guy came about.
See, for me, and I know you can't tell me this, but I want to know, what was the thing that finally made her decide, you know what, this isn't for me?
She was like, I cannot pick up your dirty fucking socks off the floor one more goddamn time.
If I fall in the toilet because you don't put the seat down one more time, and I know we're making light of a terrible monster who was, like, playing a part of this, but, like, where's your tipping point?
Like, what was... It wasn't the rape. it wasn't the kidnapping. Like, what did it for you that
Yeah,
you
like,
left?
I got some and I'm guessing for him, because I'm guessing he's a narcissist at this point, that, like, he just got tired of it because it wasn't fun for him anymore, and he just made her leave.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure, like, I know we're joking that what was her tipping point, but I'm sure she was not in control of when she left that situation.
No.
So, the efforts to turn Stephen into an accomplice fail because Kenneth realized Stephen just doesn't have it in him. Stephen revealed later that he would intentionally botch the kidnapping attempts.
Good for him.
And that just goes to speak to, while he's been quote-unquote brainwashed to believe that this guy's his dad, this is his life, he still realizes right from wrong.
He knows he doesn't want to put someone else through what he went through. Mm-hmm. And if I can prevent that, I will.
Do you remember how I said you were goddamn clairvoyant about all my stories? Hold that thought.
Is it because I know the worst parts of humanity?
Because you're a witch.
And it could be because I'm a witch. I am trying to get crows to come to my house.
You'll have to bring your crow call and toot it on the next
I have a crow call, guys, and I'm 100% trying to get the crows to come to me. And I had 4 circling my house the other day, and I'm so close. But I also work with some of the worst parts of humanity, so I get to hear it.
Yeah. So, on February 14th, 1980, so this is 8 years, almost 9 years after he's been kidnapped. So he's 15, 16 now. Kenneth Parnell, the bad guy, and a friend of Stephen's, because Stephen's allowed to have friends. Like, he's allowed. He basically can live his life.
Kevin got real comfortable, and this is going to be his downfall.
Kenneth, but yes. A young friend of Stephen's named Randall Poorman successfully kidnapped a 5-year-old boy named Timothy White in a city called Ukiah, California. And it's all in the same region.
Yeah.
It's we're mid to like slightly northern California. And I've heard the city Ukiah several times. I don't know if it's just like a criminal capital, but I think I've heard like more than one weird thing happening there.
It's like a town that people just pass through.
Probably.
It's on the way to somewhere else.
16 days later. So we got a new 5-year-old boy. So Stephen couldn't be the accomplice, but Kenneth Parnell wrangled one of Stephen's friends into helping him. I do not know if Kenneth abused this friend in the same way. I'm guessing not, because he was not a permanent fixture in the home. But regardless, this guy helped him. So 16 days later, on March 1st, Stephen decided that this little boy Timothy needed to return home so he wouldn't have to suffer like Stephen did. And he decided he's got to go home to his parents, and he helped him escape.
Good for him.
Yeah.
But see, trauma victims, I guess I should say trauma survivors, are resilient in ways they don't know. And they do things that sometimes you wouldn't expect a human to be able to do.
Yep. Parnell was working the night shift, and the 2 boys hitchhiked 40 miles into town because they're in a rural area. You know, they're out in the woods or whatever.
If you're going to do this, you have to be in the middle of nowhere.
When they couldn't find Timothy's house, they went to the police station. I mean, Timothy's 5 years old. He's turned around. He doesn't know how to get home from hitchhiking out of the woods.
No, he doesn't know.
The police initially did not believe the boys were abducted.
I'm sorry, are these the same cops that we had in Texas?
They might be, yeah. They were probably relocated from...
Like, all those people who were just like, oh, we're going to go to California now.
After they did some research, they finally believed that these 2 boys, who, had been reported missing...
Because you know what? If some kid just walked up to me on the street and said, I've been kidnapped from my parents, I'm not going to be like, have you really?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to be like, oh, don't worry, kid, I got you.
They basically came into town, like, this kid's on Steven's back because they need to, like, get out of there as fast as possible. Yeah, these cops, man. So, the next morning, Parnell was arrested. He's gotten home from night shift. He's arrested. Both boys are reunited with their families.
And I can only imagine, because Steven is the first one, right? Well, look at me getting a name right.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, because they didn't have the therapy he needed at the time. I'm hoping that he's gotten...
Damn it, Nicole, stop jumping ahead in my story.
Sorry, okay, I'll shut up.
It's okay.
Did he EMDR? Did he look into the light?
I don't think EMDR existed then. So
No,
I'm
it didn't.
say no.
It didn't start till like 1980s. But that doesn't mean he hasn't had it now.
Well, I can pretty much guarantee you he's not had EMDR. But, so the next year, Parnell goes to trial. He's tried in 2 separate trials, one for the kidnapping of Stephen Stayner, one for the kidnapping of Timothy White. He is convicted of kidnapping and sentenced to how many years do you think?
I'm going to guess
And I don't know, to be honest, I don't know which of the trials he was convicted in or if it was both and these are combined.
I'm a pessimist, so I do think it's going to be frightfully low. So I'm going to say 6 years.
You are incredibly close at 7 years. And
boo!
You really threaded the needle because he served 5.
Yep. He got out for what I'm guessing is good behavior.
Yep. He was not charged with sexual assault because by then, most of the occasions were outside of the statute of limitations.
But it's ongoing.
Mm-hmm. And Stephen had initially said when Kenneth Parnell was arrested that he was not sexually abused. But we know that's not true.
But also, so anyone who's listening who's an attorney, please go into the comment section somewhere for this episode and explain to me why there's a statute of limitations on sexual assault.
Okay.
Because it's banana pants to me that that's a thing.
Irvin Murphy, who's the very first guy who helped lure Stephen with the church donations, and Randall Poorman, who's Stephen's friend as he was older, were each convicted of lesser charges.
They get more years?
I don't know how many years they got. Yeah. Both claim to have no knowledge of any sexual assault, which the friend maybe, I'm not so sure about the first guy.
If he didn't stick around, maybe, but also, what do you think is going to happen?
Barbara Mathias, the lady who lived with him for 18 months, was not charged with any crimes.
Are you... Absolutely not.
Yeah. So,
and I'm not saying that, street justice needs to happen, because I definitely don't think that's a thing. But, you can't just get away with that.
Yeah. I mean, she literally tried to abduct children and it failed. But anyways, this is, 1980, 1981, so shit was not great. Not that it's awesome now, but...
I mean, I was born in 1980. It was the best year.
Like I said, shit was not great. Right about mid-86 is where we really started hitting our stride.
No, I just watched a video and it said, when is someone born and they're old? And they said 1990. And I was like, oh, my back hurts just hearing that.
Mm-hmm. So Stephen's home now. He's a teenager. He has trouble adjusting to a regimented lifestyle at home. He's not allowed to smoke or drink, because...
Why?
Well, he's still a teenager. He's in high school.
Oh, shit.
He's 16, 17.
Oh, shit. I thought he was an adult at this point.
No, I think he's 6, well...
But he's not allowed to he's lived an adult life for so many years, and now he's in his parents' home, and they're trying to go back to he's a kid, and that doesn't work.
Right, and they're like, hey, you're 16, 17. No, you can't drink and smoke and come and go as you please. And that's a hard transition. So he's
also, I've been sexually abused for the last 10 years.
So he's received some initial counseling, but he's decided not to seek any treatment beyond that.
As a teenager, we don't know what he's doing now. I hope poor Stephen is doing something.
Hold that thought. That'll be a callback.
Oh no!
Remember how I called this the tragic life of Stephen Stayner?
So it's very much I become the perpetrator.
His sister suggested that he possibly didn't seek any treatment because his father said he, quote, didn't need any, unquote. So we're going to take care of this at home.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Stephen's bullied at school because by now it's gotten out that he was sexually abused by this guy, and he drops out of school. He starts drinking heavily, and he gets kicked out of the family home.
Also, you can't kick out a kid that got kidnapped from you. There's extenuating circumstances here.
So in 1985, when he's about 20 years old, he marries a 17-year-old girl and has 2 kids with her.
I bet you that went great.
Yeah. So he did, while he didn't seek any additional treatment, he did work with child abduction groups and gave talks about child safety.
Okay, that in of itself can be cathartic.
Exactly. Yeah. So
because you're working through it, you're giving language to the trauma.
on September 6th, 1989, so he is 24 years old-ish. Mm-hmm. He's hit by a car while driving his motorcycle and sustains fatal head injuries.
Oh, god damn it!
I told you it was the tragic life of Stephen Stayner.
But he didn't become a perpetrator,
No,
so I'm happy for Stephen.
The driver of the car was sentenced to 3 months of prison for the hit and run, but was not convicted of manslaughter.
And that was, like, that's all completely separate for, like, what happened to him, but...
Mm-hmm. But it's like every person in his life who should be convicted
So where
of
is Kevin now?
Kenneth. Give me 1 second. I'm going to read one sentence and then I'll tell you.
Okay.
So Timothy White, who was the 5-year-old boy who was abducted after Stephen and who Stephen helped save, was a pallbearer at Stephen's funeral.
Oh, that's good. That's nice.
Mm-hmm. In 2004, Kenneth Parnell, who was at that point 72 years old, was convicted of trying to persuade his caregiver's sister. And also, he's out of jail again, let's just remind, because he only served 5 years for kidnapping and sexually abusing 2 boys.
I'm hoping he's on a list somewhere.
And I should just say, I don't know that he sexually abused the younger boy, because I couldn't find anything about that, but let's be real, signs point to yes if I'm shaking my magic eight ball here.
History repeats itself.
So his caregiver, he's 72, he's got a caregiver. I think he had cancer or emphysema, something where he needed home care. He tried to persuade the caregiver's sister tried to persuade her in 2003 to help him abduct a 4-year-old boy in exchange for $500.
I hope they withheld his pain medication that day.
The caregiver knew about his past and assisted the police in setting up a sting. He was finally sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Timothy White, the 5-year-old boy, testified at his trial. He died in prison in 2008.
Good.
Timothy White became a deputy with the LA County Sheriff Department.
And I bet you he's good at his job and probably not like the cops in some of the other cases we've talked about.
He died in 2010 at age 35 from a pulmonary embolism.
Jesus Christ!
I know.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. So, that's the tragic life of Stephen Stayner.
Well, that's depressing.
Yeah, I'm going to rip through my second story. Okay.
So, okay, guys, we're going to part 2 of her stories. I can only drink 1 glass of red because I'm weak. Mm-hmm. So I have moved on to another Sauvignon Blanc. I think next time we have to get the Boda box back in there because we need some more Boda box dry rosé.
We gotta rotate.
So I'm drinking some Ferrari Carano Fume Blanc. I'm sure I'm doing the accent very well. So this Sauvignon Blanc perfectly marries luscious, ripe notes of peach and pear with a crisp freshness of lemon, grapefruit, and orange blossom. Ooh. It has bright acidity from cool, stainless steel fermentation. That means no oak.
Yeah, that's why I picked it up because is it a California? But I think it's California, but I got it because it was
when they have oak in it, it's the worst.
Because like we're New Zealand Sauv Blanc girls.
Well, the subtle oak character
disregard
from neutral French oak barrels and complexity and depth. My old eyes. It says served chilled, but obviously.
Obviously. Okay. So, this is my second story. And
is this going to be less depressing than the last one?
Wah,
wah.
What we'll do is we'll hold that thought and we'll do a re-poll at the end of the story and see how you feel. So, I'm not going to tell you why I chose this, and I'm not going to tell you a title because it's going to give it away.
Okay, so this is very floral, so I'm going to hand you my glass so you can try this because it's very different than the first one we had was very acidic.
Ooh, it is very floral, but it's not overly sweet.
Yeah,
so
it's very subtle and very floral.
It's less sharp than the first one,
Yes.
but
it was the acidity from the limestone and everything in the first one.
Okay, so remember in my first story, we were in the middle of California near Yosemite in the early 70s through the mid 80s.
Yep.
So fast forward to February 1999. We're still near Yosemite. Yep. So we have a relation here, which relates back to my wine, which is from Central California, coastal, but...
I was 19 in 1999.
I was 4. I'm just kidding.
No, I wasn't. No. Yeah, I was 19.
No, so you were 29.
No, I was 19 in 1999 because I graduated in 98.
In February 1999, I would have been 12. I hadn't turned 13 yet. Okay, so February 1999, we're still near Yosemite, so we're still talking about the same geographical area for this second story. This isn't a part 2 per se. This is a second story.
Totally different players.
42-year-old Carol Sund, her 15-year-old daughter Juliana, and a 16-year-old Argentinian exchange student named Sylvia Peloso were staying at the Cedar Lodge Motel near Yosemite. I think they were just on a spring break.
They're on a vacation.
Yeah, just on a vacation. I'm sure they were
similar to like when we go to the Dells.
Yeah, I'm sure they were just showing this exchange student around Yosemite. When the women didn't return from their trip, they were reported missing. Authorities interviewed several employees at the motel, but were unable to name a definitive suspect. They also interviewed residents in the nearby town of Modesto, where Carrot's wallet... A carrot? Damn it, I did it, Nicole.
She Nicoled.
Carol's wallet was found several days after she was reported missing. So Modesto's nearby. She's reported missing. Several days later, they find her wallet in this town.
So when we go to the Dells, this just solidifies my belief we stay in like a Wyndham hotel, not like a weird family cabin scenario, because I want someone to know immediately when I'm gone.
Yeah, I agree. So on March 18th, 1999, so I don't know the exact date in February when they were reported missing, so we're at least 2.5 weeks afterwards. A burned out rental car is found about 90 minutes from Yosemite.
Okay, that's pretty far.
And the trunk contained 2 victims.
Oh no! Where's the third?
Later identified by dental records. It was 42-year-old Carol Sund and the exchange student. Their remains were found in this car.
Did their kid kill them?
Well, you're gonna have to find out. Sund, the mom, had been shot and strangled, and the exchange student Sylvia was raped and shot.
It's very hard to kidnap and kill 3 separate people. And so one is missing. There has to be more than one person involved.
The next week, police received an anonymous note with a hand-drawn map indicating the location of Sund's 15-year-old daughter, Juliana.
Okay, but that's not great.
Investigators go to that location and find her remains.
Okay, so it wasn't her.
She had been raped and her throat was slashed.
But there has to be more than one person in play here.
Later, a couple months later, on July 22nd, so we're 4-ish months later, the decapitated remains of Joey Ruth Armstrong, a 26-year-old naturalist who worked at the park.
I was like, what's a naturalist?
Yeah, not like a nudist, like an interpreter. So like she worked at the park.
Oh, so like you go there and
kind of like a ranger.
So I tell you about the things you're looking at.
Yeah,
okay,
ranger-ish kind of a deal. She had also stayed at the Cedar Lodge Motel, which is where the 3 other ladies were. Eyewitnesses described seeing a blue vehicle outside her cabin. Police were able to determine the vehicle belonged to one of the motel employees.
It always does.
The name of that motel employee is Carrie Stayner, the older brother of Stephen Stayner.
Wait, is that from the first story?
The young boy who was kidnapped in the first story.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I am not.
So his brother's kidnapped. He murders 3 women in a state park? Was this before or after the brother came?
This is 1999.
So this is after the brother came home?
This is after the brother, even after the brother died.
Maybe everyone needs to go to therapy in that family.
The FBI tracks down Cary Stayner at a nudist resort about 2.5 hours away and take him to Sacramento for questioning.
Of course they did, okay.
Where he confesses not only to the murder of Joey Armstrong, but to the murders of Carol Sund, her daughter Juliana Sund, and the exchange student Sylvia
Why did
Peloso.
he do it?
That's why I didn't tell you the name of how this related to the first story, because that was the exact reaction that I wanted.
Are you kidding me?
And when I first heard about this story, of course, the tragic life of Steven Stayner, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then you find out that his fucking older brother becomes a goddamn serial killer.
His poor parents.
Yeah. Cary Stayner confesses to entering the cabin of the three women under the guise of needing to fix a water leak.
Did Steven do something to him, though, when he came back? Like, did his brother do something when he came back?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. He strangled Carol, the mom, sexually assaulted the two girls, shot the exchange student, and then drove the daughter to a different location and slashed her neck.
Jesus Christ.
He also confessed to intentionally dropping Carol's wallet in Modesto to mislead police. Until his vehicle was seen at Joey Armstrong's cabin, he was not considered a suspect because he was, quote, clean cut, unquote, and did not have a violent history.
But that's how you get him, right? Like, look at Ted Bundy. The reason you're willing to get into my van is because I don't seem like a threat.
Mm-hmm. And while he may not have had a violent history, he clearly had a traumatic past because his younger brother was kidnapped for 8-9 years, repeatedly sexually assaulted, and had to escape with a young boy.
But for him to be doing that, something else was going on in that household.
In addition to the 4 known victims, Cary Stayner is suspected of killing, but has not been charged with the murder of Patricia Hicks Dahlstrom, a 28-year-old woman who moved to California from Washington in 1982.
So he's a serial killer.
Mm-hmm. She was a member of something called the San Anda Apostolic Church, which is, I think, different than our apostolics.
I was going to say,
I was going to say it's more culty, but let's be real. It was led by a legit cult leader named Donald Gibson, who was later, not surprising to anybody, convicted of sex offenses in 1981. After those convictions, Patricia left the cult and was last seen taking a bus to Yosemite. Cary Stayner was a known acquaintance of this cult leader and even attended his trial.
I cannot wait to build the episode page for this because I got some questions.
Another suspected victim is 42-year-old Jesse Stayner, Cary's paternal uncle, who was shot at home in December 1990 with his own shotgun.
Wait, so when did his first victim occur?
1999.
And when did his brother come home?
1980.
I got questions about, what was going on in that house then.
And Cary's the older brother here. Cary and his uncle lived together at the time of the murder, and Cary claimed that he was sexually assaulted by his uncle Jesse around the time of Stephen's kidnapping. The murder was never solved. He's also suspected in the death of 24-year-old Sherilyn Murphy, whose head has still not been found.
But here's the thing. So, if you grow up in a household that has a lot of abuse, personality disorders develop based on environment, not genetics.
He's also suspected in the death of 20-year-old Michael Madden, who went missing on August 10th, 1996, when he was supposed to meet his friends to go fishing and camping.
Is he still in jail?
Cary Stayner was tried in federal court for Joey Armstrong's murder. That's the park ranger-ish person. He was tried in federal court because it occurred on federal land because Yosemite is a national park. He pled guilty to first-degree murder to avoid a death penalty. In state court, for the other 3 women, he pled guilty he pled NGRI for those who don't know, that's not guilty on reason of insanity.
That never works. You have to be psychologically tested and forensically. You're always competent.
So he pleads guilty in federal court. In state court, he pleads not guilty for reasons of insanity. His lawyers in state court argued that he was traumatized and suffering mental illness caused by the ordeal with his brother's kidnapping.
The kidnapping doesn't mean that I murder several people.
Mm-hmm. In exchange for his confession in federal court,
I want to be like, take a page out of old Bernie's thing. Like, you got to show.
In exchange for his confession, he tried to negotiate receipt of child pornography.
From who?
The police, I guess.
No, but like, who did he get it from? That he's.
Oh no, he said, "I'll plead guilty if you give me child pornography."
Oh, I read that wrong.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming the police were like, no.
yeah. I think probably.
So is this the first case we've talked about in the last 2 days where like the police got it right?
They got it right. Well, yeah, probably. So in state court where he pleaded not guilty due to insanity, he was found sane because he fucking was.
I mean, that's the thing. People think, oh, I'll plead insanity. You're always going to be found sane because the legal definition of insanity is very different than like the layman's terms or the psychological
terms. The bar
terms.
is so incredibly high that has to be.
You basically have to know the difference between right and wrong, and like you hit it from the police, so like you knew it was wrong.
Exactly. So he's found sane in state court. He's convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of kidnapping because he took the daughter Juliana to a different location before he killed her, and he was sentenced to death. Carrie Stayner is currently incarcerated at San Quentin State Prison, where he's been since 2002.
Well, that's where he belongs.
He is on death row, but the state of California has not held any executions since 2006 due to court battles over capital punishment, etc.
And like, we don't have enough time to go into the ins and outs of capital punishment. Like, I'm assuming something we can talk about at a later time.
So when I started this episode, my first story, and said, "This is
like
I'm going to call this the tragic life of Stephen Stayner." It also goes into the horrible family life of Stephen Stayner.
I got a lot of questions about what's going on.
Yeah.
Because obviously Stephen, like, he got kidnapped. That's not his fault.
Right.
But something happened to the other child where that's how he developed.
Mm-hmm. And whether it's a factor or not, or he was just like, fuck it, I'm going to kill these people.
Because this is above, like, I'm the ghost child, where, like, if a child is like very medically ill or missing and all the other children are forgotten, that's a little bit above and beyond. So there's something else there.
So you have his, Stephen Stayner, the kidnapped child. You have his parents and siblings, Carrie included during the kidnapping, who go through this ordeal of being, their brother and son is kidnapped. He returns back. His life is hard because of all of his trauma, and then he ends up dying in a motorcycle accident.
He was just trying to do the best he could.
And then, 14 years later, other son becomes a serial killer.
And he was in a shitty situation. In the end, he did the right thing. Mm-hmm. But then his brother was like the polar opposite. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. When I first heard about this, it was just like continually... First of all, just reading Stephen Stayner's poor life, where the system failed at every turn by, first of all, not incarcerating Kenneth Parnell for fucking life when he was convicted in 1951 of raping a boy, and then later for armed robbery.
But that's the thing. Like, when you have evidence that someone is a child predator, you need to do something about it in the moment and not try... I don't want to ruin their life. They're going to ruin so many other people's lives. Yeah. You need to be very firm in the, we're going to ensure you don't have contact with your victims.
And even when he was convicted in the kidnapping of Stephen Stayner and the other young boy, he still only had to serve 5 years. So, I mean, really...
People have been arrested in the 80s and had longer charges for marijuana. Mm-hmm.
So, regardless of what you think of what Carrie Stayner is a horrible human being. Now, if it's true that this trauma of his brother being kidnapped, I mean, it all goes back to Kenneth Parnell, the original offender in this case.
Wah wah.
Yeah. Yeah, not your uplifting story you were hoping
So
for.
maybe we need to find a good uplifting story. Like, that's not what we gravitate towards, though, because we like to horrify people. So
yeah, I'll try not to make them all this bad. I'll try to come back with some other crazy
my
shit.
next story isn't about murder or death. So, like, I'm very excited.
That'll be a good one.
It's about fancy wine.
How on topic. But yeah, so that's the very tragic life of Steven Stayner and the rest of his family.
Okay, guys, we will see you in 1 or 2 weeks, depending on when we have time,
Yeah.
for episode 7.
Yeah, already.
Okay, have a good day, guys.
Peace out.